Oh, hi everybody. I didn't see you there. It's just me on my own, and I'm wearing a Doctor Who outfit again. You know what that means. Must be time for another Doctor Who review. Obviously. Yes, you read the title right. In this video, I'm going to be giving my thoughts on each episode of the most recent televised series of Doctor Who, Series 15, also known as Season 2 on Disney+, now that the season is finally over. Now let me get this out of the way at the start. This season was a rough one. Despite its promising start, it fell apart in the messiest way in the last few episodes, and I'm going to explore why I think that myself. Episode 1, The Robot Revolution. The series' opening episode, an introduction to new companion Belinda Chandra, unfortunately felt very rushed to me, with the inciting incident happening before the credits even roll. We hardly get a chance to experience Belinda's life as a nurse before meeting the Doctor, which really doesn't help her development, a problem which will unfortunately be present throughout the rest of this series. Visually, however, the episode shines. The practical robot costumes, the richly detailed sets, and the villain's whole prosthetic look going on, which is genuinely one of the best looking baddies since Flux. While some of the VFX heavy shots don't live up to the rest of this potential, one effect I did love was the Technicolor Void sequence where the Doctor touches the certificates together, resulting in the best looking part of the whole series, honestly. Belinda's initial saving grace is her rockier dynamic with the Doctor, refusing to be charmed by his cavalier attitude, a sharp contrast to Ruby's warmth last series, and setting up a promising arc about her desire to just get home and her growing distrust with the Doctor. Unfortunately, this aspect doesn't last for very long in this series, with the writers seemingly speeding through anything interesting in order to turn Belinda into another Rose or Martha as soon as possible. This one, 6 out of 10. Episode 2, Lux. Wait, did we do this one already? Oh no, that was Flux. Wish I was watching Flux right now. Lux impresses with impeccable period piece costumes, top-notch production design, and a fascinating dive into the golden age of animation and cinema. Yet it never fully earns its wings. Alan Cummings' Mr. Ring-a-Ding is a fun character, taking advantage of wacky cartoon logic, menacing our heroes by turning them into cel-shaded caricatures. But the episode fumbles that inventiveness by shoehorning in a pantheon villain origin that feels more like obligation than anything substantial. I wish we could have gotten more out of this character than just an evil god that happens to be animated. The meta fourth wall sequence with the Doctor Who fans could have been a more meaningful moment, but as with recent self-referential moments, I'm not really a fan, especially with the hindsight that it has absolutely no payoff, and it's just the writer seeing what he can get away with. You'd think it would sort of make sense in an episode about cinemas and audiences, but Mr. Ring-a-Ding calls himself the god of light, not the god of reality or the god of fiction. Whatever. This one, 7 out of 10. Episode 3, The Well. Well, it's The Well. Yes, it's a sequel to Midnight. Did it need to be? Absolutely not. The first half delivers effective Aliens-style horror with striking atmosphere and tension, even if the pre-credits call to action feels as rushed as The Robot Revolution. I found myself completely invested before the big twist. The setup and tension was already strong enough to carry the episode without turning it into a quasi-legacy sequel where the titular Midnight entity behaves nothing like it does in its first appearance. This could be chalked up to the fact that this story is set 40,000 years after its predecessor, justifying the creature's evolution and change in behaviour over time, but it didn't even need to be justified in the first place. It's like Russell T Davies set out to create the next Midnight for a new generation of fans, but took the prompt too literally and shoehorned in name drops and flashbacks. Still, the production design remains top tier, and the supporting cast shines the most out of the whole series, especially the entity's host, Alice Fenley, and squadron leader, Shire, who leads the squad with real gravitas and has a good relationship with the Doctor. Belinda gets a few solid moments showcasing her medical abilities and bedside manner with empathising with Alice, but other moments like another companion fake-out death that happens in the series' third episode makes me wonder at the time if she would get more moments to stand out as her own character, or if she was even meant to be her own character. Spoiler alert, no she doesn't. Episode 4, Lucky Day. Lucky Day is one of the new era's most Chibnall-esque episodes, and I can't believe I'm saying that as a compliment. Thanks in no small part to returning Chibnall-era writer Pete McTeague, this and The Well make up the series' peak. This Dr. Light installment leans on a compelling, grounded villain in Conrad Clark, whose vendetta against UNIT feels far more real and urgent than the usual Pantheon of Gods fantasy business. Even better, we finally glimpse the darker side of companion life as Ruby Sunday grapples with PTSD and the aftermath of her travels, giving her a depth we've seldom seen in recent years. The episode nails its character work, especially Kate Stewart and her conflict with Conrad. But I wish the episode's resolution could have been handled a bit better, perhaps turning Conrad's own tricks on himself instead of opting for the violent option that ultimately proves Conrad right. Similarly, the motivations for his vendetta in the first place could have been stronger, more personal than a failed job interview, perhaps something to do with UNIT failing to protect someone important to Conrad. Oh well, this was good enough. 7.5 out of 10. Episode 5, The Story in the Engine. Well, The Story in the Engine had me scratching my head at first, with some confusing beats and a structure that felt all over the place, but after a second watch, I can't deny that it's an alright, solidly average outing. It channels a lot of the mid-season Moffat episode vibes with its setting and theme-heavy approach, yet it carves out its own niche through its Nigerian setting and cultural nods, thanks in no small part again to guest writer Inua Ellams. I was thrilled to see the fugitive Doctor pop up again. Nice wink to the Chibnall era, thank you for acknowledging it. But her role barely scratches the surface, and I wish she'd actually interacted with the 15th Doctor. The villains deliver strong performances, and those brief animated parts are pretty inventive, but the finale leans too hard on the Doctor's past, lumbering into an archive footage montage again, just to overwhelm the villain, something we've seen a few times in recent years. It's confusing, but in a curious way, and perhaps Ellams' style just isn't quite my cup of tea yet, but I would welcome his return, if the show comes back. Oops. Episode 6, The Interstellar Song Contest. Thanks to the showrunners and writers taking to social media to warn audiences of immediate spoilers of some big reveal, I was already preparing for the worst. What I got was one of the most average, middle-of-the-road generic episodes ever, made memorable only by its big content-generating moments. The repeated reverence for Eurovision quickly wore thin, and while I appreciated a glimpse of the 15th Doctor's darker side as he confronts the terrorist character, Kid, and the threat to trillions of people, the story's resolution hinges on multiple cases of "if only I had," where the seemingly devastating act executed by the villain in the first half of the story, it's harmlessly reversed, removing any stakes. Ncuti Gatwa's performance is very strong, but the flimsy writing undercuts every emotional beat. The Doctor goes too far in physically torturing the villain into submission, which has little to no consequences, with Belinda forgiving him far too easily for her to be the same character we saw in Robot Revolution. Susan's return is perhaps the biggest tease. Carol Ann Ford pops in for all of 5 seconds to psychically shout at the Doctor, then vanishes, never to be seen again, which feels disrespectful to both the character and the actress, who's earned far better than a glorified walk-on. And don't get me started on the Rani. She's shoehorned back in with a hollow, epic, fourth wall breaking reveal that inflates her to master level or Dalek level stakes, even though her entire history is that of a silly, easily outwitted, campy mad scientist. It's the clearest symptom yet of this era's obsession with big content moments over genuine character arcs or meaningful development, swapping depth for cheap callbacks and hollow fan service. At least at this point in the series. Foreshadowing. This one, 5 out of 10. I don't care. Episode 7, Wish World. Wish World's concept starts off promising. Its illusion of a perfect society echoes classic dystopian tales, but ultimately it feels recycled, having been executed more effectively elsewhere, namely Marvel Studios' WandaVision and the 12th Doctor's own Monk trilogy. The episode's commentary on the hollowness of utopian ambitions it's alright at first, but it quickly devolves into little more than a stage for Conrad's one-note villainy. Meanwhile, oh my god, the space baby Captain Poppy returns as the Doctor and Belinda's daughter for no reason. Since the finale has no other connections to space babies beside this, why not just cast a new baby instead of drawing more unnecessary attention to one of the era's worst episodes? Ruby, likewise, is extremely sidelined. Her subplot involving the disabled residents of Wishworld has no bearing on the story's resolution, and the Rani's motivations remain baffling. Her scheme lacks the malevolence we'd expect from a true mad scientist, and feels more like the confused complications of a master-style plan. The completely untelegraphed search for Omega, of all characters, is a contrived, overly verbose grab bag of ideas that never come together satisfyingly. Worst of all, Belinda spends the entire episode brainwashed, reduced to a passive observer whose actions, like Ruby's, have zero impact on the finale. A disappointing echo of better companion finales, where Rose, Martha, Donna each played decisive, active roles in their own stories. This one's a 4 out of 10. Episode 8, The Reality War. I really don't even want to talk about the reality war, but here we are. Cliffhanger was already weak, and its resolution, somehow hinging on the Christmas special, felt even sillier. Bringing Susan back instead might have at least given her something to do in this series. The episode briefly checks on Shirley and Rose Noble in Conrad's fake world, only to promptly relegate them to mere victims meant to underscore Conrad's cruelty. And Captain Poppy's importance is just as baffling. The audience has already accepted that she only exists as a product of the false reality, so Belinda's sudden protectiveness towards her makes no sense, given her previous character. After a few minutes of exposition, the Rani whips up Omega as a giant zombie baby who promptly eats her before being zapped with a laser by the Doctor. Quite possibly the most absurd finale resolution ever, especially given it only occurs halfway through the episode. Why it had to be the Rani, why the fake world had to break for Omega's return, or why Omega needed a body at all, are questions screaming for answers. It's yet another case of Russell T Davies reviving classic villains as big growling monsters, unrecognisable beyond their names, and it's especially grating when these godly foes are defeated via physical brute force for the second year in a row? Remember when they attached a dog leash to Sutek? Poor Belinda is literally locked in a box for the entire episode, and once she's out, her entire past is rewritten by the Doctor without her consent, erasing her agency entirely, while Ruby's uncertainties are literally dismissed as confusion, despite her tendency to remember alternate timelines. While the 13th Doctor's brief cameo is the highlight, she's only there to hand off the regeneration baton, thanks to some baffling behind-the-scenes decisions and mess that the episode suddenly has to rationalise. And the regeneration is a mess. Subpar effects, disjointed execution, and some last words that fall flat because I no longer care. And then there's Billie Piper. This desperate retread of the David Tennant twist barely 2 years later feels incredibly creatively bankrupt and drags the 15th Doctor's run into deeper murk. An ambiguous ending might have been less polarising, but instead we're left with a 2 out of 10 and an uncertainty about the future of the show. Who is Billie Piper playing? Is she actually the Doctor? What the hell's going on? Where's season 3? It's the end, but the moment is being prepared for. No, wrong Doctor. Overall, this series really disappointed me. The first half had incredible potential, and even had some fans calling it the best of the second Russell T Davies era. And unfortunately, some of the baffling decisions in the finale have tainted my enjoyment of the better episodes, if you can even call it that. I'm going to have to give this season a 5 out of 10. At least I enjoyed half of it. I hope you guys enjoyed this video though, so if you want to see more content like this in the future, more reviews from me or the both of us, more TV, more movie reviews, please let us know. Please like the video, subscribe, and please leave comments. Leave more comments, watch all of our videos, and get this one to our most viewed video ever and 1,000 subscribers. I don't know. Have a good one.